All right, welcome to the Robert Show. I'm super excited because I have the Spectral Core team today with me, and I've been talking to the team since a while. I've been looking at Spectral Core since a while and love what they're building. So definitely wanted to host Damir, who's the CEO and founder of Spectral Core on the Robert Show, and also Denis, whom I've been chatting so much about Spectral Core. I've been learning so much about it, and today we decided to come and obviously host the team and chat with them, learn more about the importance of migration, like the important migration tools, also database migration. I'm kind of excited to also see something that Damir can show us, give us an insight into the product as well, but also talk about the future trends and much more. So happy to host you, Damir, Denis. Welcome to the Robert Show. Looking forward to a conversation.
Thank you for
And
having us. We are happy to be here.
100%.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So nice to obviously for y'all to do this. And Damir, I know you've been in the data AI circuit since more than 20 years now, and it has
Forever,
been
yes.
so would love to I know you're not a new face to the audience, but I'm pretty sure they would love to learn a little more about you, what you've been working in the past, what you're working on right now. So would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, happy to. So yeah, I have a company for database migration specifically, right? So we've been specializing in this for some 20 years, and for
Mhm.
most of that time, we've been targeting small businesses, right? So that's why we have customers in over 100 countries,
Wow.
and as well, this also, like shapes our product range now because small businesses don't really have a dedicated IT departments often, and they do need to migrate database, but they have no idea what to do, right? So the only thing they have is they have the existing database in one format, they want to move it somewhere else, and they don't want any problems. So the way we approach the problem is making the software being fully self-tuning, right? So there are no little knobs to make this work. There are no another knobs to make it performant. No specific driver installation. It just basically just works. And this turned out to be a very big point now that we are in the enterprise space because other tools are not really working like that. With other tools, you need to set things up. It takes a long time, and then you need to go into all of the little options, and when something needs to be changed you need to go and tweak a lot of things. So it turns out that one of our biggest let's say competitive advantages is that this de-risk the whole project. It just works, right? So we've been doing data migration tooling. We've been also doing the code translation tooling, but I guess that's for some other inter in the future. um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I think what we really are trying to do is transform the migration industry in the form of, instead of just copying stuff over from one format to another, also making sure that it exactly ends up being the same, which is a challenge, especially for the code translation. So I think it's interesting times ahead. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing those details, Amir, and thanks for giving us an insight about why you started it. And 100 plus countries is where your customers sit. It's like a dream for any company to have like such big demographic in terms of the user base. So that's awesome, pretty good stuff. Denise, would you like to also introduce yourself? Tell us more about what you do at Spectral Core and what you've been building.
Oh, good. Thank you so much, Ravid. I have joined Spectral Core recently with very specific mission. So I'm responsible for big partnerships with
Nice.
companies like Google, and what we do actually we help people to migrate to clouds. So
Hmm.
you might see that like very recently cloud platforms become very important. And companies sometimes struck to be not able to migrate their databases to clouds efficiently. So
Hmm.
this is why we think our tooling will be very important to make their life easier, to de-risk
Right.
their projects, and essentially to cut costs. So that would be the big mission.
Yeah, no, I love it. And thanks for sharing those. And obviously, you all are on that mission, which is going pretty well. I know I've been obviously in touch with both of you. Damir, quick question. In terms of when we talk about migration, there have been like so many tools. There's so much that goes into it when it comes to customers thinking about migration. It's like one big task for them, and they want to make sure that it's as smooth as possible, as cost efficient as possible, but at the same time, uh, time, which is also very important, right? So what do you think about the importance of migration tools? How does how should it play a role, which is it's the least least of a worry to the customers, or those who want to migrate, right? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, it turns out that these migration jobs and projects in companies, unfortunately, they fail much more often than people might think, because it turns out, yeah, it's easy. You can write some scripts. There are tools around, and then you start, and especially with large companies and complex databases,
Right.
the projects get prolonged, they run over the
Mm.
cost, the data turns out corrupted, requirements change mid project, right? And then you switch
Right.
to another quarter and another quarter, and at one point it becomes too expensive and it's scrapped. And I think it's a shame, because
Mm.
companies do get hurt because you have all of these mergers and acquisitions, and large companies buy smaller companies. They want to integrate stuff into the let's say the stack that they're most comfortable with, or that's most cost efficient. But it turns
Yep.
out it's risky, because if you have, for example, if you have a system that works and it processes transactions, and if that goes down, you can quickly accumulate millions of dollars in the lost revenue, in penalties, and so it's
Exactly.
if you're someone working in a large company, you really don't want to risk your position and say, yeah, let's
Mm.
do this. We're going to say like 30%, but then if this fails, we all lose a job. Right? So I think it's important to have such tools that, let's say, guarantee that the project will actually be completed and tested, and that everyone will be ending better off instead of being super stressed.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Damir, what keeps you? I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that what all you have mentioned here. You'll make sure all those things are in place for the customers or for the users that you have.
Mhm.
what are what are the challenges actually that arise when you're kind of looking, when you're kind of thinking about migration as well? Like customers might be telling you that, okay, Damir, we have like these three main challenges that we are facing at the moment. It could be about the data culture internally as well, right?
Mhm.
It could be many other things. It could be just the hierarchical view of how it has to be migrated. Again, it goes back to the culture again, that
Mhm.
okay, now the team is not in the right shape to do it, but we want to do it.
Yeah.
So does those types of challenges also being spoken to you, and then you kind of figure out the way and get them together? How does that work?
Yeah, actually, so as we are a product company, not a consultancy,
Hmm.
we don't get to, be called on when things are going smoothly. We are called on when the things get hard. So after companies have tried a number of things and they
Yeah.
failed a few times, especially when we are talking about very large database, let's say 100 terabyte database,
Hmm.
and nothing works, because theoretically it's easy, but in
Hmm.
practice, theory and practice differ, right? And
Yeah.
you start getting all kinds of issues. And so it might be that the in-company team is starting everything on their own, and then the larger company, the more bureaucracy you have, and the harder it is to get the resources that you need. And so let's say you have a open source tooling that can do this, and to be completely direct here, whatever any tooling can do, you can do on your own. So it's
Mm.
these things are known how to do it. The question is, how long will it take you? What the performance is going to be? How many mistakes will you introduce inadvertently, especially when the things are changing? Um, so yeah, they tried a few things. They tried some tools, and then we get called, and
Mm.
that's very, we get these benefits of we have a self-tuning engine, and so for example, our tooling will look the same, but it will work completely different under the hood. Whether you are, let's say, migrating from a relational database to another relational database, from a relational database to a data warehouse, and even on the table basis, right? So depending on the table structure, you might use one algorithm to move the data. On another table with blobs, you might use another algorithm to move the data. And these are all things that people really are not even aware of how complicated uh, all these edge cases are, right? It's easy to
Mm.
move something that's completely compatible with the source and target to remap data types. As I said, everything can be done. There are many clever people there who do it on a daily basis. But the larger and more complex the project, the harder it is to actually go and pull it off in the reasonable time frame and with a reasonable cost, right? Because
Yeah.
if you have to, for example, yeah, we can do this, but we need uh, five more VMs or something deployed. Then you're waiting for a month for the other department to go and deploy that for you because they have to get approval, they have to check security and so on and so forth. It gets
Right.
complicated, and then the actually I think it's there is a interesting side story to this. So our tool can run on a single machine. It can even work as a horizontally scalable migration cluster. So you can have agents on, let's say, 10 machines if you want them.
Mhm.
And it turns out not a single customer has ever used the horizontally scaled uh, variant of our software because it does not need its performance as it is on one machine, and it's super simple to use. And that it was a surprise to me because for so many years I've been working with smaller businesses now, and then when I got introduced into all of these complex scenarios in very large companies, it was for me a surprise how easy it is to get a showstopper issue that has nothing to do with the migration as it is, but with all of the other stuff that has to work inside of a large company to pull it off, right? So simplicity always wins. And if you can
Yeah.
get performance with simplicity, that's even better, of course.
Love it. No, I love definitely love those insights and thanks for sharing that. Talking about also the product, I know you had more of show and tell that you would like to do for our audience as well, and we would love that as well. So, would you like to pick that up? Tell us more about the database migration tool. How does it work? But before that, Denise, any questions that you would like to also throw at Damir in any
Oh,
interesting insights
oh,
that you would also like to share?
oh, good. Oh, thank you so much. Maybe I can throw a question to both of you. So I'm observing that AI application now is getting bigger and bigger, and then they would require data to be supplied. So we have data engineering teams growing. And then we see that the infrastructure behind it, the databases itself, is also getting attention. So, Ravit, have you experienced any interest coming from AI people and data engineering people?
So it's a good question in terms of how obviously in the AI world that we are in right now, things have been where everyone's interested in AI and building AI applications is like one of the top notch things. Even obviously you've seen companies like Snowflake, Databricks kind of working so much into the game, right? Uh, but the idea of being having that traditional approach for data engineers where they're still looking at data pipelines never goes off, or obviously the migration never changes. It has to be done the way it is, right? And there are obviously products like Spectral Core who are still doing, like how Damir explained. I think y'all are doing the right things in this space. And I think AI applications is like definitely I see a very good trend there in terms of the growth. There'll be more adoption that will happen. There are a lot of enterprise leaders who are now interested in making sure where it should be adopted in more and more regulated industries in the most easiest way possible. But yeah, that's my 2 cents in it.
Oh, nice. So thank you so much. And maybe the same question to Damir as well. So how do you see that AI hype is now being
Yeah,
running the world?
like every hype, it's totally overhyped, but it's also super powerful. So one has to, give credit to where it can be used, and then also honestly say where it cannot be used, right? So
Mm.
as far as I can see, AI when it works well is spectacular, right? It blows my mind. I know how it works, and still I'm surprised how well it works in
So,
specific situations, right? And we have to. There are many types of AI, right? So, but people today generally speak about LLMs, which are basically a statistical text completion on a super large scale, right? And there, the best output you will have, the closer your desired output is to something that this LLM has already seen. When you are trying to get answers on something that LLM is not being trained on, you get hallucinations, right? And
mhm.
so I think that, and also there are some other issues like data privacy, right? I see that a lot of big companies are forbidding the use of AI because they are uneasy training AI on their
Mm.
business, let's say trade secrets, right? Because even though until they can get this in-house completely walled off, I think it's a challenge to get them to accept AI on large scale. And I know there are some database migration tools built on top of AI that are not being used specifically because of the privacy concerns. So that's one issue, is the privacy, and the other issue is this hallucination, um,
Mm.
and because it's not deterministic. So sometimes you will look at the output of the AI and you'll think it's more clever than I am, right? It's more clever than my whole team put together. And then 5 minutes later, you'll look at this and think, oh man, this totally doesn't work for anything. We cannot use this, right? Because it just gives you something completely different then. So it's interesting to know how will this evolve. But I think what would the best combination possible is to have a deterministic migration core. So like traditional programming that works, that takes a lot of hard work to get done, and then use AI on top of that to analyze, to summarize, to give you the let's say to give you some superpowers on top of the very strong core. I think the tool that gets that right is going to be super powerful. But the tool that relies only on AI, I'm not so optimistic that it's going to work that well on a reasonably large scale.
Love it. 100%. And obviously, Damir, I don't want to take this away from our audience as well about the product that you were going to show. So
Mhm.
thanks, Denise, for that question. Very interesting insight, Damir. Damir, do you want to show us more into the tool? Give us an overview, any features,
Sure,
benefits? Would love to have a look at it.
sure. Demo
All
is,
right.
I think, worth 1,000 words or more. All right.
It's always fun, right? It's
Yeah,
always good to see.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Cool. Okay, so I have remoted into a data center in Germany, right? So that's Hetzner data center. So this is an on-prem environment, and I can maybe just start showing how we can, get and move something large from on-prem to the cloud. And let's see what can we achieve here. And then maybe we can go into, how we can customize the process. And so actually to get started from the beginning, I'm gonna just say I just need to start a little script which basically runs the application and opens the browser. So there's no setup, we give our customers the binaries. And that, of course, gives customers full control over everything. They can completely wall this off, run this in their own environment, in their own data center, in their own cloud tenant, however they want it, right? So without setup to actually install something, you already simplified life for all of the people that are going to use this on a massive scale, right? And now the question that the next question is, how do we even get started, right? Okay, so we click new project, and then we have a few project types. But for this demo here, let's do a standard full copy, and we support some 30 databases, right? Let's go from local SQL Server here, and I can say, for example, let's go with our demo database here. And I'm going to click next, and let's go to BigQuery. All right, and we have this concept of favorite connections, so you don't have to write things down every time. So right now, all I've done is connect to this local SQL Server, connect to the remote BigQuery, right? So we're going from the on-prem to the Google Cloud. Now when I click finish, we're going to be reading database structure from both source and target here. And we see we have 10 billion records here. So just to save some time, let's deselect everything. We can sort by size. We can sort by number of records. You can see this is our demo database. So we know how much records we have here. As for example, these have 1 billion records, right? So let's pick one with 1 billion records. Let's pick one with 100 million records. Let's go with one that has blobs inside, right? And I think it's enough. I can say show selected only, just so we know what we have. And even this like super tiny demo that I'm going to show so that it's done quickly, we can still manage to select 1 billion records, right? All right. So the only thing I have to do is actually click one button. So the whole process, and why I say de-risks everything, is we need to connect to source, connect to target, and click one button. And if you want to save time on doing demo, you also deselect some tables. And then if you look at the right side here, we are copying 10 terabytes per day here, right? On a billion records, right? And records per second, 7.5 million. And this is an average from beginning. So it includes connecting, reading the metadata. So we're doing roughly 8 million records per second, going from on-premises to the cloud. And you can see we are actually CPU bound. So if we had faster CPU, more CPU cores would be even faster than that, right? And now that we are going to be finishing 1 billion records in a matter of just a few minutes, it's automatically going to start with another table. You can see this is still, we're copying one table. I can hide the slices, and you can see just a simple progress bar here. So all the end user sees are the simple progress bars, but what we do under the hood is we automatically slice these large tables, right, to be run on many parallel threads. We are super optimized. So we're moving currently 9 million records per second, right? And roughly 14 terabytes per day, extrapolated, of course. And as soon as we are done, right, as soon as we have finished, as soon as we have threads available, workers available, we are starting to copy another table, right? And as soon as all of the slices for a specific table are complete, we're going to be starting ingestion on the BigQuery side, and we are almost done. We have moved 1 billion records in 2 minutes, going from on-prem to the cloud, right? If you go to the Ethernet here, you can see that we are uploading 6 gigabits per second on a single machine on-prem to the cloud. And what's also interesting to mention is that these 6 gigabits are already compressed data. Because what we are doing, as we are seeing this, simple progress bars here, we are actually reading the whole source database. In this case, like 3 tables still, but it will be if you had 100,000, we have customers using this on 100,000 table database, right? So what we're doing is we are reading this in a massively parallel way. We are recompressing the whole database, building Parquet files on the fly, crushing the data size to 20% because the Parquet is a columnar format, streamingly uploading this to the intermediate storage, triggering up ingestion, and we're done, right? So it took us less than 3 minutes to process 1.1 billion records. Now we're just waiting for BigQuery to ingest that. So that's the way we de-risk the process, because what I have shown now works for any combination of source and target on any size, right? So we have some customers who are telling us they want to use this on a petabyte scale databases. I'm so much looking forward to this to see how well this works. But yeah, I think the most important thing is, we remove the complexity of the installation. We remove the complexity of any kinds of tweaking of the settings, drivers, and so on. Okay, so we are done in total. So combined with ingestion into BigQuery, in under 4 minutes, we have ingested over 1 billion records here. And if I now go and deselect all tables except of, I think, this one with the blobs, we can see actually what is like the maximum throughput, because when you have large rows, we get to be even more efficient. So take a look at this data per day. So we are doing roughly 77 terabytes per day on a single machine going from on-prem to the cloud. So that's, I think, more than an order of magnitude faster than the next best thing on the market. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this is the basic process. And now the question is, of course, the real world is more complicated than, just copy this as is to the target. People want to customize things. So maybe I can just cancel this before it starts ingestion. And I can show you maybe how we customize things.
I would love to see that, because it's more in the lines where, obviously you might be getting, first of all, thanks for sharing everything, but I know there are always like requests that, we want to customize this, we want to, make changes
okay.
to this.
So let's again go from local SQL Server, but in this case, I'm going to select several databases, the same demo, and the AdventureWorks, and the TPCH. All right. And let's go to Postgres just for fun. And the Postgres can also be on the cloud. It can be local, whatever. So we can say, all right, Ravit and 3 databases, right? And we're going to move these 3 databases to Postgres. And we're not going to be doing everything, but this is also a very cool data integration tool, because right now I'm migrating 3 databases into one. Again, I just, selected a few of those, and now I can go and add some more databases of any type, right? We have no limit. We have no limit in the number of databases here, right? Okay, so you can see these badges, which currently are looking exactly the same as the name of the database. And when you're migrating, you don't really control the name of the source database. You cannot rename database to make stuff nicer on the target. But we have a concept of aliases. So I can say, okay, this one shall be alias of adventure. This one will have alias of demo. And this one will have an alias of TPCH, for example, right? Okay, so now when we go to the tables, we have even more tables, 1,200, right? And if I go to the options, I can also change some stuff, for example, like name casing. I can say instead of default, which will lowercase on Postgres, I can say unchanged, right? And then you'll see that we move the default DBO schema to the default public schema, but the table name stayed the same, right? And the same goes with, for example, ones from the AdventureWorks demo database, right? So everything stays the same. And now let's see what can we do about customizing things. For example, all of these tables are going to be in the same schema and name on the target like they're on the source, right? If we have clashes, we will deduplicate, but basically everything is named the same on the target as in source. But we have a ton of DBO tables, ton of tables in DBO schema on a different SQL Server database. So we may want to actually move these into different schemas, and we have this nice simple looking mapping things. And I can say, for example, alias should become prefix to original schema. And then please notice we don't have to save anything. So what was in TPCH database comes into TPCH underscore DBO schema, right? And while we might have thought these were the same database, they were not. So these are in demo database, these are in TPCH data. So we can do this as a prefix, right? But also we have some predefined mappings. So we can say actually alias becomes our new schema, right? Which is, I think, pretty common thing. So you just dump everything from a specific database into its own schema, right? And in this case, we prefix the original schema to the table name. Or I can say, actually, I don't even want the original schema. So this DBO tiny one and so on goes to the demo schema of the tiny one, right? All right. So this is the schema, the schema mapping, right? So if I go to the, for example, human resources employee, which is a table I like, because I'm using it on a ton of demos, right? And we have this adventure employee is the target because I moved everything from AdventureWorks database into adventure schema, and the rest stays the same. However, we can actually do more. So let's go to the options and let's play with the data types. Let me go and show this again. So for example, we have this hierarchy ID that's like an object type in SQL Server, right? It has no equivalent on Postgres. So we map it to the text, and we have no idea how deep the hierarchy is. We would need to read the data, which we don't really want to do on a 100 terabyte database. Just go ahead and analyze the data before migrating it, right? So we change it to varchar 255. But let's say, we know our data. We are doing the migration for our company. We know that the hierarchy is not so large. So I can basically go ahead to the options and say in a form of source equals target. And we can do very advanced stuff like ranges here, but still. So I can say hierarchy ID should become varchar of just 10, right? So if I go back to the tables, again, I don't have to save anything. This is now applied to all of the tables. Even if you have 200,000 tables, we have just mapped the data type. And I can write similar stuff like I can say if you have n varchar that's between 1 and 200, move it to varchar 256, and have multiple rules in the same sense. So we can also do global column renaming. So if you have business entity ID, you want to name it biz ID, you do it on all tables at once. And in real world projects, you have like 50,000 tables that are okay, but you also have, let's say, 20 tables that are super large. Each can be terabytes inside. And for these tables, you may want to have special treatment, right? And you want full control. So after you've done all of the project mapping that should apply to everything, you can actually go and say, okay, I want to do manual mapping. And now you have full control over this specific table. And you can change the data types. You can say, okay, actually, this should be geography, or this should be decimal. And then you can say, actually, it should be decimal 10.4 or whatever. You can filter the data. So if, let's say, you want to move a table that has the last 30 years of company data, but you're not interested in the last 30 years. You don't want to pay so much for the storage and pay on the performance end, right? And then you can just say, okay, actually, we want some date to be larger or equal to, I don't know, 2020, 0 and 01, or whatever SQL expression you want to do. And we'll take it into account when we're doing slicing. We'll just add that expression. You can also override some things like, for example, table slices. We do intelligent slicing of tables, depends, so we can, depending if it's relational, if it's data warehouse, also which data warehouse it is, also which data warehouse size it is, right? Because if someone has a small data warehouse cluster and someone else has something that's 100 times more powerful, we can ingest with much higher parallelism, right? And we fight the network latency with parallelism, right? So you can just go ahead and say, actually, this is a table where I want to have 1024 slices, right? And also I want to use some other slicing column because, again, the real world can be very interesting. I have seen people with compound primary key of 12 columns, which are not even sensitive, but they do have something else that's unique, I guess, for historical reasons. And then you can say, actually, let's use another column to slice, right? And actually, what else can we do? We have a ton of options, and almost none of them are related to making the software work at all or making the software work more performantly. So if you just run this on its own, it's going to be super performant. But you can tweak if you want. And also what's interesting here, we have data verification. So after we have copied the data, you can say, actually, we want to count the number of records to ensure that the data count is the same on the source and target after copying. Or we're actually going to get rid of the hash comparison because we found people don't use it. And then we can say, actually, let's do a full record comparison. So after we have copied the data in this messily parallel way, we also do the messily parallel sliced comparison of source and target, and we detect any records that are not exactly the same. Some, if they're missing, we'll tell you if they're missing a target. If there are extra records, that will tell you that. And if there are changes, so differences on a specific record, we'll show you the first 100 difference. We'll show you the grid and tell you actually, and then you can, for example, see that your maybe if you're going to override things and you were overly optimistic how small the data is, you'll see suddenly you're truncating data with your customizations. That you'll catch that with our comparison that is run immediately after you copy. And what else? I think we have already shown quite a bit of these things. What else can I tell you? They have some nice things like, for example, dry run, right? So you can copy the stuff without actually ingesting it. We prepare all the scripts, we prepare all the data in the intermediate storage, and then the team members can just go and run one statement at a time manually to ensure that everything is fine if they're so inclined. Or if you are copying, 10 billion records or 100 billion records to Postgres, and index creation would take a long time. You can just skip the index creation foreign keys and create them on your own, right? If you already have the data structure on the target prepared, it may be prepared by someone else, right? And you want to ensure that OmniLoader does not use the data type mapping that's not 100% compatible with what that other team was doing. Then you can say, okay, expect existing structure on the target. If so, instead of dropping and creating a table and then loading it and creating index foreign keys, we'll just truncate it and load data inside. Maybe the last super useful thing, because de-risking is for us really a big part of our philosophy. If you have a flaky network and all of these jobs that we are doing on a massive scale, some of them fail, right? Or even your source database maybe down for a bit and then up again. We will keep trudging along as best we can, and then we'll keep note of all of the things that went wrong. And after we are done, we'll tell you, we've been able to copy 571 out of 600 tables. Would you like to recover? And then you click one button and you just redo all of the things that are failed, right? So if you have flaky network, this is a godsend in those scenarios.
Yeah. I think, Damir, these are fantastic details, and thanks for giving us an insight into how the product looks like, and everything around how the customization happens. And I have like a few questions, and I'm pretty sure Denis might also have like a few questions. Can we ask a few questions to you around this?
Oh, good. Oh, thank you so much. I think our audience might also be interested in flexible deployment options. So we do have many clouds coming, and we also do have industries which are very strict in terms of compliance, so they may require or gated on-premise deployments.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
No.
gated deployments are like practically required from when we listen about the larger the project is, the more sensitive people are about the security, right? And which is exactly why we are giving them, a zip file for Windows version or targz for Linux version, and then the company people who are in charge of security can vet this that this works well. And I showed in the demo that we are able to move 70 terabytes per day going from on-prem to the cloud, and flexible deployment is one of the key elements of that, because if you have a cloud tool to do the migration, right? So you have a SaaS tool and then you connect it and you have some kind of gateway, and it's already becoming complicated just talking about that. But besides of being complicated to run the tool on the cloud, to move data from on-prem to the cloud, it's also incredibly inefficient, because you have to pull all that data over the network into the cloud, process it on the cloud, and the CPUs on the cloud are, as a rule of thumb, not very powerful, because the cloud vendors have to pack a lot of cores on each machine, right? So they run on a lower frequency because they have to conserve energy. When you run this on-prem in your environment on the machine of your choosing, you process and compress data on-prem. So the data that is 5 times compressed is moved again in a massive way over the WAN, right? So it's one is security, but the other thing is performance. So more control to the end users, a better chance that their project will turn out successful, right?
Oh, thank you. That's a very good answer. The more flexibility we provide, happier the customer.
I mean, you cannot go wrong if you give customers what they need. Right? So, but again, also not to listen what they tell you they need. You have to think instead of them, right? They tell you what they want to get, and then you give them what they really need instead of. Yeah. Okay. So we had quite a few things that were asked for us that we didn't implement, because it would end up going into the wrong direction.
Yeah. And Damir, also quick question here in terms of, how do you handle data integrity and, consistency when migrating large databases with minimal downtime? Because that's one thing that, also a lot of enterprise leaders are very concerned about. How does that happen?
Yeah. So if you remember when I started the video, we had 3 project types. One is the conversion,
Right.
and that's like full copy. Take the tables, move them over, create indexes, foreign keys if they're relational, or something else if ingest them if they're a data warehouse. Then the other project type was replication, and that's like
Right.
sync on demand, where we do this same comparison that we use to verify that the data is correct. On a large scale, we do compare source and target, even if there are billions of records, figure out the diff, apply the diff. And then the third project type is change data capture. And change data capture is really the powerful stuff. We also provide the scripts for the DBAs, because if you're doing CDC, that's already far larger investment into the tuning of the source database. There are some settings you need to enable. So we have the scripts that are exposed right in that zip file. And if those DBAs are not satisfied with how we are doing it, they can change it, and they just run the CDC. And again, they have it with a single click. So I think this de-risking philosophy with super optimized performance is really paying off. And I see it's paying off the larger the database is, because we are starting to get called regularly on stuff where everything else failed. So I have high hopes about the future here. Yeah.
I love it, and thanks for giving us in depth about it and sharing those details. Also talking about database, I'm kind of interested to learn a little about the future of database management and migration. How does it look to you? What are you looking at? And would just love to get a 360-degree view from your end, Damir.
I think the AI is going to have a much larger role everywhere, because there's so much interest in that. It is overhyped, but there's a lot of power there. It's just the question of who will be able to harness it best. And of course, I hope that people will be careful enough with their data and the AI, because all kinds of things can go wrong.
Mm.
What we are going to, I can tell you what we are going to try to achieve in the following months, but also years, because this is like a long run approach. We are going to integrate code migration and data migration as a nice, how to say, rounded solution package. The same way, and here is where things are tricky. When you look at how the database code is translated or migrated today, the state of the industry is not very bright, actually, because you can see that people are using regular expressions to transform the code. So many things go wrong in that way. Or there are very few that are doing a full semantic analysis of the source and transformation and so refactoring. And that's the approach we are doing. And it's maybe 100 times more effort than doing the regular expression approach. But what it ends up enabling you to do is to do also a full test. So you get full circle, right? So with the data, we have already achieved of moving the data, verifying that everything is correct. Doing the CDC, doing the transaction by transaction in super high speed. But with the code, that's even harder, because you need to transform from one language into another while ensuring that semantics is exactly the same. And because the source and target are different systems with the different capabilities, even if you did your best to do everything right, and it seems fine and it should be fine, it may not work as expected just because the target database may handle, now ordering differently or the order of operators. So that's also it's as I said, you can go deep into that rabbit hole when trying to translate database code. And then also we see that while SQL is such powerhouse, today Python is the big thing as well, right? Because many data analysts who don't even know SQL very well, and then you are in danger of someone using SQL wrongly, right? Because it's not the part of their bread and butter. So we're gonna try to perfect even the very hard transformations, like specific SQL dialect to Python, not just between SQL dialects. So I think that's going to be extremely useful once we're done with it. And I'm also interested to see what our competitors will be able to pull off. I guess the AI translators are going to be very powerful. So interesting times ahead again.
Yes, 100%. Very interesting times, and those are fantastic insights. Damir, one quick question. I know it's almost time, but then I'm also kind of curious to learn a little about how can people reach out to Spectral Core? What's next that's coming up? Any final thoughts or messages for the data community out there?
They can, I think, if anyone is interested to see OmniLoader in action, we have omniloader.com. They can reach out, arrange a demo with me or with someone from my team, and we can basically show them what I've been showing here, answering all of the hard technical questions, and basically proving that what we claim is true actually is true, right? They can read about the company on spectralcore.com. We'll be super happy to get in touch with anyone who finds this interesting, and we have a lot of other things coming up. So
super excited about it. Damir,
and also a couple of more thoughts. So I think we will be able to provide the link for audience.
Absolutely.
Technically, I guess it will be below the video. So audience, people, you are very welcome to come and see how it works in action. And maybe the wider idea. So thank you, Ravid, for a beautiful question about the future. So what we are observing from our side is that databases are not getting smaller, and they're not getting easier, and complexity increases year over year. Especially if people are not comfortable, they tend to kick the can down the road. So they don't want to do it this year. They say let's do it in 5 years. And database is getting bigger and it's more difficult to manage. So it is indeed getting complex. It is getting uncomfortable. but you don't have to struggle alone. So please feel free to reach us. We are happy to help. We are happy to share our experience. And also we are happy to provide a tool which is automated and can take the most of the job on itself. So you don't need to challenge your team on that challenging environment when you have problems with database migration.
Awesome.
Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna share those details with our audience, and but this was great, great conversation, great insights, Damir, Denis. Once again, thanks for doing this. It was such a pleasure hosting you both on the Rabbit Show, and all the insights that you all shared. And thanks to our audience as well for attending this session and asking questions. Feel free to reach out to Damir, Denis. They are on LinkedIn. You can easily reach out to them, have questions for them, or you can even go out and check out the website as well. So thanks once again for doing this. Such a pleasure hosting you all.
Thank you, Ravid, for hosting us.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ravi.
you very much.
Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye-bye.